We are not responsible for the content of this program, and its transmission does not imply our approval.
I watch too much TV. What can I do for this?
Okay, my name is Jaime Davidovich. I originated the live show from 1978 to 1984.
I'm William Ohauser. I did the Vol show from 1977 to, I don't know when, sometime. It's over now.
I'm Ron Brumwald.
I'm Tony Arena.
And we do the Wild Record Collection. Post couples who just might make an appearance a little bit later.
I'm Lisa Yap. I did Tomorrow's TV Tonight. And Video Vision with Michael Schnitzer, and then I was office manager of Coca Crystal for several years at the studio.
I'm Scott Lewis. I'm here for the Scott and Gary Show. I'm paid through 1989, possibly. Gary Winter, the director of the Scott and Gary Show.
I'm George Stoney, and I'm on the board of Manhattan Neighborhood Network.
Hi, I'm Rapid Rabbit. I own Rapid Rabbit and Friends, produced by Richard Concepcion, who's hiding somewhere in the theater tonight.
The privilege to have George Stoney, who's the real father of public access in New York City.
Well, I'd like to say that if what we saw on the screen tonight was all there was public access, it would never have never would have lasted. I think this is what we saw was the worst aspect. I thought that the Stroh did a disservice to the whole idea.
I remember franchise hearings in the 90s and people coming out and screaming, "The people demand," and I'm looking at them, "No, you demand it." And what public access gives us is the fact is that there could be a show for like Tomorrow's Television Tonight, which was like cabaret, theater, which had no television presence at all at that point. Theater or cabaret, you couldn't find anything out about it except in the paper. Here, you had people that talk, you could see them talking, you could hear them, whatever. But even down to that, there could be a community. I said, a community of one is valid. That one person who wants to do a show that nobody watches, they might not even watch it. That's valid as much as any other show. That's the greatest show. I will go watch it tonight. But to me, that's just the concept that you can have one person just doing a show, it goes on, and it's for themselves. It's not for anybody. It's not for some higher, loftier purpose. It could be a higher, lofty purpose, whatever. They might be accurate and the aliens are about to land. But they should have the freedom. And
We know there are different things, and I think everybody here knows that public access has a much wider range.
But there are serious and very important issues that are discussed on it also.
Even though they were completely different and I might not choose to watch that particular show, I don't recall that we ever disparaged another show.
I think that also another thing that we should point out, that we all came to access from different disciplines and with different ideas. And what public access was at that particular time was television by the people.
Yeah.
That was a concept that didn't exist before. We have to put ourselves in those early years that the only thing available was broadcast television. So when cable came about, there was a lot of free channel space. And that was the time, that was freedom, and that was the time that anybody could do a show. This opened the door to a new way of seeing television, a new way of doing television that includes this type of shows.
I love the idea of people flipping dials and just coming to us, like our show or any of these shows, going, what's that? You know, and we're on the same wavelength as ABC, NBC, and CBS.
It's really hard to do a TV show, and it's really hard to have people who are doing social issues, maybe you want to call it, to go and actually stop doing what they're doing, which takes a lot of time and effort, and then go and do a TV show, which is completely insane to try and do on any level, which is why my show was as, as threadbare as I could do it.
On the other hand, the show that I inherited from Nick Yanni with Brian Bradley and Stephen Schaefer, what we put on there live, I think they're not even doing anything similar to it today on broadcast. It was so hard to do what we pulled off.
Maybe you could just say a little bit about tomorrow's television tonight, because we didn't show any of that. And just explain what the show was. And
Sure. And Jim Claddick is here actually.
Where is Jim?
Responsible for the studio that made all this happen. It was a 90-minute live show on Mondays. We had about 19 people working crew. There were a lot of live roll-ins, a lot of tapes. I had contracts with every record company in America for videos. Everybody you can name, from Steve Allen to Jay Leno to Seinfeld. We had John Wallish playing the piano and Broadway stars singing live. And Nick was a perfectionist. It wasn't about random, it was about perf. And when Nick passed on, Brian Bradley, who was the second night critic, and Stephen Schaefer, who was the editor of Us Magazine at the time, and myself was just working in the office, but had a passion for comedy and rock and roll and counterculture, we inherited the show. We tried to live up to the standards that Nick really set.
Didn't exist before. We have to put ourselves in those early years that the only thing available was broadcast television. So when cable came about, there was a lot of free channel space. And that was the time, that was freedom, and that was the time that anybody could do a show. In any place, when you are experiencing freedom for the first time, you have the good, you have the not so good, and you have the ugly, because it's all mixed up. It's part of the concept of freedom. When you have a freedom and you have a revolution and you have a major change, you're going to have this kind of disparities in quality, because that's part of the concept. You cannot expect to have a television by the people with the same guidelines as broadcast television, because it doesn't work. And the fact of the matter is that now, 30 or 40 years later, we see the influence of YouTube, the television that is completely amateur, completely out of focus, completely out of frame. They're able to do revolutions and they're able to do changes because the people have access. Doesn't matter the quality, but they have the access. And I think this is what public access is all about.
Well,